Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Strength in the Numbers. Our guest mentor this week is Sabine Prenslev Christensen, who started her finance and accounting career working in the renewable sector before then deciding to do military service, which later led her to a stint in the finance department at the Danish Navy, before then finally becoming a finance and business consultant. Now, what I really enjoyed about our chat with Sabine is that I came across her via an article with Anders Leo Lindberg, and Sabine has a very similar value mindset to me, which was what I used when I wrote the book, The Audacious Finance Partner, which is the one that became a bestseller on Amazon in the UK and America. And the reason why I believe that's the case is there's a lot more finance professionals showing a lot more courage in their interactions with the business, particularly coming out from behind our desks and challenging the business on some decisions, not necessarily always winning them, but making sure the decisions are better value for the business, and that helps us become more influential. So I felt that Sabine had some very interesting points, as she shares on our podcast, in particular some of the actions that we're unknowingly taking in finance and accounting that are perhaps holding us back from becoming even more influential. Sabine deconstructs some simple actions that she calls on leading up and leading down, as she's done in the Danish Navy, that reduced time costs and improved the value of the insights she was giving. We also go into the courage mindset, as Sabine calls it, and why it's important for accounting and finance professionals. And finally, Sabine shares how you can actually gain more respect by having the courage to say no, trusting in your training, and also the worst but surprisingly good outcome that actually came from her doing so. So look, I really enjoyed this conversation. It did drag on a bit longer than usual, but I felt I was talking with a kindred spirit when it came to how to approach finance and adding value for the business. So look, hope you enjoyed as much as I did. If you want to follow up on the show notes, you can find those as usual at sitnshow.com/podcast/068. So without further ado, over to Sabine and the show.
Of course I will. I think my real career or journey started when I was doing finance reporting back in the United States for this company doing renewable energy. I was doing forecast and then a finance report for Chinese investors. And while I was sitting there, I was just thinking that I knew all the numbers, I knew how it was going to be in the future, but I had no idea what's going on behind the numbers. So after being in the United States, I went back home. I took an English bachelor in international sales and marketing, just to getting to know the value change, to getting to know how to talk to the customers, what audience you are looking for, and so on and so on. After that, I spent a time in the UK working as an accountant assistant. Unfortunately, my mom got very sick and I have to go back and take care of family business. It wasn't my area. Doing that, after a while, I got into the Navy, where I was holding the project. I've been there for 3 years. Working with that, and I quit my job 3 months ago. And actually now I'm just, going out there and tell everybody how I did my job, and another way of looking into finance, how to speak to the manager and how to actually lead. I think that leading and managing is not just from the top and down. I also think it's from the bottom and up. And definitely, yeah, but it's not actually very common, and not everybody's doing that. And I think it's so important in finance you can do that. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just going out there encouraging others like me to do what I did.
There's a lot in there I'd love to explore more with you. So in terms of, maybe let's start exploring that last bit in terms of that bottom up piece. Is that sort of related to the article you did with Anders around listening being a key skill, or what sort of the main things we could look towards to ensure we're doing that bottoms up approach?
I think that many of us just sit behind the screen doing the numbers, doing the report, hand it over, and don't think about it anymore. And that's kind of, you're stopping yourself for being more into the business. You're stopping yourself for developing. You're stopping yourself for being a part of the decisions. So knowing what your bosses want to know, both what they need or nice to know, you have to get the relationship not only with your customers, but also with your bosses, the leaders, the managers, so on. And the thing is that when you get to that point where you know what kind of information they need to make the best decision, the work you have done is kind of perfect in that term that you are you're cutting down the time cost. You know what you give is the value for the best decision, and the relationship you have, the managers actually encourage you to do more, and you get enrolled in more decisions and discussions. So I think it's quite important. And as you said, I did this article which Anders reloaded, and it was more about I was using this finance report every month for the manager to get the right decision for the forecast and so on. And I noticed that every time I was doing this, I always get the report from, well, actually, this was my customers. Just remember that doing the defense and being in the Navy, there's so many levels of managers and uh, working people, so it's kind of hard to understand where you are in the the change. But but remember that I was kind of in the middle, so I have a lot of people under me doing well, they were sailing the ships, and a lot of the staff over me was, saying what they have to do. So doing this report, I have to get all my information from the lower levels to bring up to one report and go to the higher levels. And often the lower levels were delaying on the report because they have no idea what's going on, and they're doing anything else and too busy sailing and so on. So I kind of just, I opened the door and went out of my office and I visit them. I visit them and tell me, you know what, you're delaying my report. What's up? And they're saying, we don't get the information either. And after that, I started to visit them often, and they started calling me because at the moment I got a view of what kind of work I was actually putting them through, and it was enormous. And just by picking up the phone or sending an email or just visit them, we cut down the time cost actually very big. And that relationship was, for me, perfect to do my reports. I was always ahead. Whenever one manager asked me of anything, I knew what was going on. I knew what the cost would be, and I knew what kind of things we have to do to improve whatever was going on. So definitely relationship with the manager, managing up, not only down, is very important doing finance. And there's not very much, and there's not anyone doing it actually in that context. I wish they would.
I suppose it's just take care of all those around us. It's very easy to get trapped behind screens, particularly if that's how we've come into accounting and finance. If you worked in sort of like family businesses before and so on, you appreciate that it's the people that make an organization at all levels, and therefore you'd probably be more mindful to go and talk to people out on the front lines, people doing the tough work, to get an appreciation of where they're coming from, where you can make their lives a bit easier. And I know I can think of my own stories as well, where I've done that, and then they're actively reaching out to you to sort of share with you what their challenges are. You help solve them, and then therefore your data flows speed up, and therefore the timeliness of what you're delivering to senior management is actually even better, and probably more enhanced than what they've ever seen before. And all it is simply getting out from behind your desk and going talking to real people. So in terms of maybe some people that are still stuck behind their desks, why should they get out from behind their desks, Sabine?
Well, actually, first of all, I think you're talking about, it's all about the mindset. I think it takes courage to go out there. Sitting behind the desk and look at the numbers is kind of a safe area. So when you go out of your comfort zone, you go out of the office and actually meet the customers, they will be challenging you for your knowledge about the numbers, why you do that, why we're going to do that, and so on. So when you go out there, you get a whole another view of how the business works. And doing that is so important for the numbers. I would never, never walk into a manager with a problem without 2 to 3 solution. And I can only do that if I know what's going on in the business. So I think that it is so important to go out, to go away from the screen and go and learn, just to get this relationship and to know what's in the business, how it works, who pays who, where is shipping through, and small things. But it's
Yeah.
behind the numbers was actually counting. When you go out to management and tell them this number is red or this number is perfect or whatever, and have a story behind it, because that would lead to what's going through to the future.
Yeah, like definitely. I suppose a good way maybe. I mean, it is completely down to mindset. I'm just trying to sort of convince people that if they're not doing this already, then like there's plenty of people who are, and as much as we might have been hired for our technical skills around numbers, like we're living in very demanding times, globalization, very demanding consumers. So there's plenty of other people that are starting to do this more, and if we're not doing this, we're going to get left behind and become less relevant. And if we're sitting behind our desks staring at the screens, we're not appearing very relevant either to the business. And I challenge everyone, like, do we really know our businesses if we're doing that? Do we really understand the numbers? Is there anything that we can actually go learn? And we probably could if we just got out from behind our desks. So it's a great bit of advice there, Sabine. I was just trying to think in terms of your work with the Navy. I mean, their challenges in your mind, would they be sort of similar or quite different to your traditional industry or commercial type businesses?
Well, it's quite different, because when you're in the Navy or the defense of whole, you get you get a kind of money from the governor, and you have to make that the best of it. So you have a number of zeros on your account, and you have to make the best value out of that. And that's it's a big challenge, because working in the Navy is a day that nothing is compared to yesterday, and definitely not tomorrow. It changes all the time. So you have this amount of money and you have to do the best for it. That means you have all the time to be ahead. You have all the time to be in front of whatever is going to happen, and you have to make the best of it. A very good example is we are doing a being who I am, having my mindset, I always try to make the best of every value that I can find, right? So in a little line in one of our intern doors, I found this saying that you can actually convert some money. It has never been done before. And I went down to the manager saying, hey, by the way, we can actually get some money here. And he was like, nope. I was like, are you sure? Yes. You know what? That's a challenge. I accept it. And I went back and I just, I took a call to my customers saying, you know what? I see opportunity here. Let's go for it. And they're like, you're crazy. You're crazy. It's never going to happen. And I was like, yeah, that's double challenge, right? So we spent a lot of time actually trying to figure this out, and I sent it up to the highest level, and they're just shaking your head. This you can't do that. It's like, you know what? It's staying right there. You can read it with your own eyes. You actually make this, so I'm just taking you up on your offer. So the bottom line was that actually with this corporation and this finance report we did, it took 3 months. We actually gained value of 2-figure millions to get back to our department and to spend it better than we could have. And it was a big success because it was the first time anyone has actually done it. It was in the law, so you can do it, just nobody actually dared to do it. And that only succeed because I had so good relationship with my customers, with my managers. They were having my back all the time, even though they were shaking their head. and we succeed. We did, and I was quite proud of all the people I've been working for. And it stands today. I'm known as the rebellion, And I'm quite fine about that because I challenge the system, and sometimes you have to go out, be brave, have the courage, look up for your scream, and do it, do that things. And I think that's a quality a lot of people is lacking, sitting there behind the screen. So,
Yeah,
and back
yeah,
to the
yeah.
question, I'm sorry. Working with the finance in the Navy is quite difficult, and it's a challenge. It is definitely, and you can't compare it to anything else. It's not value change as you know it. It's not commercial. You just have to have the best of what you gain.
I appreciate you saying that, and I think you laid that out nicely for us. But there's still some common themes there that I encourage our listeners to pick up on. Is that sort of courage, that audacity, that boldness. That's why I titled the book "The Audacious Finance Partner," because we need a bit of that side to us, the ability to challenge and hold the mirror up to the business. That's what we've been doing. It's just getting out there and doing it, and doing it more, and then that way we'll find where there's opportunities to add value. And I love how you said you had your manager's back, and when people feel like that, they'll open up a lot more to you,
Definitely.
and they'll give you more opportunities to add value. So some great bits of advice in there. I really enjoyed you sharing those, Sabina. And in terms of, I sort of want to step away a bit and look your voluntary work with was it the Red Cross?
Yeah.
What are you doing with them?
Actually, I'm just we have these refugees from Serbia, and I'm just teaching them math and Danish actually. I come
Okay.
from a home where we have foster kids, so it's quite normal for me to give for those who don't have as much as I have. So working with these kids it's just fun, and I'm the one who's actually think that the ones who want to do more, we should encourage and motivate and lift up and see the world because they are our future. And there's so many opportunities out there. It's just a waste if you're sitting one there actually you want to do something, but actually don't have the motivation or the right crew behind them. So that's one of the reason I'm volunteering in teaching.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You're doing that. I think again that's why it's great to have guest mentors like yourself on the show, Sabina.
Thank
Again,
you.
share no, but it's sharing your advice and thoughts to make give other people who are motivated the chance of succeeding. And we've got fantastic skills that we pick up in our finance work that we can go share with others. Whether it's the work like you're doing with the Red Cross, or I know other people have got involved with like entrepreneurial for young people.
Mm.
Or actually I think even people doing scouts, I think I've got a show coming about scouts as well. There's so much we can offer in terms of our organizational ability, our finance ability. Why not share it and learn a bit more about ourselves and helping others in the process? So well done for doing that, and I hope more of our listeners take your lead and consider doing some volunteer work as well.
Yeah, that would be great for a better world, right?
Oh god, completely. Well, as you said, they are our future. So
They are our future. And I think one of the things that I think that I gain the most respect for in my work in the finance in the Navy is my courage to say no. I mean,
oh
you're standing there in front of a highly ranked commander, and he's just looking at you, shaking his head, and no. Did you just say no to me? I was like, yes, I did. Come on, guys. You can't do this because of that and that. And as the partner said before, as long as he knows the reason why I said
yeah,
no, he can say yes. I really don't care as long as he know what's going to happen. But
yeah,
just the fact that I'm standing there, being a woman, being not in uniform, and being in finance, which they all kind of hate, is like saying no to a commander. They just look at you like, are you kidding me? So I think the courage for saying no and stand up to your skills. I mean, I know what I was doing. I know how the thing was going to turn out if they're saying yes. I know what kind of the future hold and what cost would go ahead with this decision. Saying no actually gain a lot of respect. So,
yeah.
so it's the courage again. It's the mindset, and I think we should all do more of that.
I do feel that there's this agenda out there that I think in the past finance probably said no too much, and we said no in the wrong way. But there's this agenda out there at the moment where we're encouraged to get people to yes or and yes, and I just feel that that's just very passive in terms of we're just probably letting people enter into the wrong decisions without understanding the full reasons. Because if it, like you got these scenarios of groupthink where everyone around the table says yes, there's no discourse. What's the point in having the meeting? If you say someone says a no, right? I think no is brilliant because it helps clarify boundaries as long as it's done in the right way. Whether it's whether we're giving the advice and someone says no, that's wrong, then we can maybe go and say, well, okay, why do you think that, or what's your thinking there, and how did you come at that? And they might help us see something we hadn't seen in our approach. And similarly, if someone wants to do something, and like you said yourself there, Sabine, standing up to very senior people and saying no, if they're how do you say, anyway, a decent leader, they're going to try and understand why. And maybe letting you help them, how do you say, show that, or even show them where they might have missed something in their thinking. They can still take that decision. That's their right, but it's our responsibility to at least help them make better decisions and provide them with that insight.
I definitely agree. Definitely.
So look, that's just part of our jobs, and in fact, that's how we add value. And look, once a decision's made, is we have to support the decision on it and do our best to make it happen. So that's saying no in the right way. So don't be frightened, as you said. What's actually, just out of interest, what's the worst that's ever happened to you when you said no?
I was kicked out of a meeting.
There we go. You're not the only one. That's happened to me a couple of times as well.
But actually, I got back in there and saying, you can't do this. Actually, I kind of got in there and I slammed the door and I said, what's your problem? And he just looked at me like, oh, she's going to eat me. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm here. I'm doing my job and I'm actually doing the best I can because of you. And he's actually one of the manager that is the best manager I've ever met. He always stood behind me and we discussed the number. He didn't just, get the figures and just look at them and didn't take me into the discussion and decision. He actually, he put me through that. So we have a great relationship and he's one of the most talented leader I've ever met.
Yeah, isn't it funny how it works? That you just remind me of my scenario there. I remember the last person I said no to, and I got kicked out of a meeting for being disruptive, and then that person's been my biggest sponsor in an organization since. I think she's helped me get 2 jobs.
Respect,
because of it's respect.
Yeah.
So you got, again, it's got to be done in the right way.
Yeah.
And if you get kicked out of meetings or being told you're disruptive, that actually could be a good sign. Yeah. As long as you're not being told it all the time. But
but don't try it at home. Just saying.
Yeah, don't try it at home. Yeah, it's not worth it. Well shared, Sabine. So look, let's go to some lightning questions. In terms of advice, what's been the best bit of advice you've received? Career or personal life?
I think it was career, and I think it actually was a mix. Being a part of the Navy, he was an older commander. He told me that I was rebellious, saying you're a rebel and you're extremely wild. Nobody can contain you. And I just looked at him like, okay, well, thank you. And he said, any boss who's willing to put you loose is going to make extremely high value and result. And I was like, what do you mean about being rebellious and wild and making result? And he's like, you know the business, you know how it works. You go out there, you talk, you don't take no for an answer, and you kind of pain in the ass. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. And so I think that one of my best advice that I ever gained was, believe in yourself. Don't take no for an answer. It's just another opportunity. And believe that you actually go out there and talk to people. I know you can spend 4 hours just drinking tea, but getting to know what they need and how they work and who they work with is going to benefit your work so much. So do it. Just do it.
Definitely. Well, great bit of advice. I really enjoyed it. I can't add anything more to that. Very, very good, Sabine. And I suppose in terms of resources you sort of found useful, or any books you found useful, could you perhaps recommend anything to our audience?
Well, I'm listening to a lot of broadcasts, actually. One of yours, by the way. I think the one where you're sharing your knowledge and encourage other people to do the same as you do, and actually just showing the way. It's motivated. So in all that, yeah, listening to other finance broadcasting, listen to TED. Every night before I
Hmm.
go to bed, I take one of these 10 minutes you can add, and it selects your the project. You have no idea what's going on, and just listening to different things. It opens up your horizon, it opens up your mind, and you see things in different way. I think it's motivated, so I do a lot of that, and take cut off all the negative people. Go out saying that you can't do that, or that's a no, or just sit behind your screen. It's not working. Take some people around you that's encouraging you, that motivates you to see the best in you and the skills that you have, and spend more time with those. Spend time with people and broadcasting and books that actually encourage you to do whatever you're good at. That's what I do.
Yeah, a very good bit of advice, Sabine. I think we're very similar in that regard. It's, like, I wouldn't be a big fan of like jazz, for instance, right? But I appreciate the principle of jamming, and it's just going out there and exposing yourself to different ideas, different thinking, and seeing what. Yeah, I suppose it's diversity of perspective, So we've actually not just known for, oh, this guy's or girl is good with numbers. It's just a case of there's a bit more to us as well,
Yeah, that definitely is.
that we're continuously looking to improve and add value, to our own lives, but also to others as well. Like I'm actually learning about trees at the moment and different leaves,
Okay.
and how you can tell, yeah, and how you can tell, north, south, east, or west just by looking at the shape of trees. And because in Ireland the sun isn't out all the time, and it's not easy to figure out where you are, always. So yeah, looking at trees, and then it'll be stars and stuff like that, because I think they're just, people have been able to do that for years, and they're very old skills, but it's just nice, and you learn loads, and actually you can get a lot of sort of see any areas of similarity and crossover into our work in finance, in terms of
Definitely.
providing direction, looking for signs, and trends, patterns. We're very good at that. So, just so it's actually quite a good skill for a finance person to pick up. Is actually, we could actually look at trees and forests, and we could even figure out the direction, the bit of history as well, and potentially what might happen in the future. So,
I definitely agree. Actually, funny you say so, because I was thinking about what's going on in the future in the finance business, and
mhm.
taking the robot is coming and taking more and more of the jobs. And
Yes,
so that they are. We can't deny that.
yes, yeah.
And I think one of the most important skills that's going to miss is the basic accountant. I mean, I learned it. I learned it the hard way, doing my school, and then doing it the seal in the paper, writing it all down. But I must admit that I'm forgetting it because I'm not using it. So
Yes.
I think that one of the things about the future and the robots and all that is great, but it does make another demand for us. All the basic hard work skills like accountant is gonna be, I don't know, gone. I don't think it's gonna survive, to say that. So I think our role is changing. The CFO role is changing. I don't think he's gonna be managing in the same way. I think he's gonna be a strategic, business-focused guy, adding value, and all his people behind him is going to be kind of the same. So I think actually one of those, as you say, look at the tree, where are we going? I think it's going to
Mhm.
be missing in the future. So all that hard work and basic training, I wouldn't say it wasn't for nothing, but I think it's going to miss in the future. And
Yeah.
actually think it's going to be a problem, because you know
Mm.
what, you take a step over a gap that's actually a fundamental understanding in how it works.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that with this rush to automation,
Yeah.
and look, I'm a big supporter of it, by the way, because if it frees up our time to add more value, I'm all for it. But there is this part of our training we go through where we are stuck in debits and credits, the basics.
Yay.
And I have to say, I'm a geek. I love all that stuff. But if I did that all day, I wouldn't be in a job. So it's applying it in the right way and understanding it, and that is my concern. And I think we have a bit of a cliff facing us as well. We've a lot of senior people, and some people might think they're dead wood. I think they've gone through the hard way as well. But we're going to be missing a lot of. There's going to be a lot of people retiring, and there's a lot of skills going to be outflowing of that nature in finance, where they learned it the hard way and they didn't have all the benefit of these tools to make it easier for them. So yeah, I completely agree. I think there is a risk in the future, and it's incumbent on us not to lose sight of the fact that there's great foundations in becoming finance professionals and accounting. So let's cherish it, but also appreciate that we have to come out from behind our desks and add value. And I think your point about the CFOs is a very valid one. I think there's this term out there at the moment, chief value officer.
Yeah.
And if that's not a warning of what's expected to come in the future, it's really about value and providing value. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Sabine. I suppose in terms of any other points for our audience, any other thoughts about the future you'd like to share?
Not about the future. I think one of the things that I learned about my short journey is that I believed in myself about the one decision I made 10 years ago. When everybody else was doing accounting, I was taking another school for knowing the business. I think that it is very important for the future to know how the business works. I know that making the right relationship across the organization is very important. And I just think you should not be afraid of going out there and have a meeting. I mean, I invited some of the highest level on the Navy to join me for tea. And everybody was like, you know what, they don't have time for you. Well, actually, they did. And they were quite interested in what I had to say because we add value from the bottom and up. So believe in what your skills are, believe in what you can see in the future. Don't be afraid of being fooled. I mean, I stand there talking like a fool and everybody was shaking their head and like, you know what, we know this, and like, okay, but nobody told me, so thank you. And I just take the chance, go out there. The future is changing all the time. I mean, today is not tomorrow, and maybe your job is not there, and I think it's not. So compared to the finance, you have to be looking up for your screen. So yeah, I think that's just it. Cooperation across the organization is very important. But the future holds that you have to do more relationship with across the organization. You have to know what kind of info that your supreme or your manager wants. So you can't just hide behind the desk. You will not be involved in anything just sitting there and hand over the result. Then there's some guy, some woman, me probably, taking the report, run away and just, hand it over to the boss saying, hey, I talked to 10 of the one out in the machine room and they say that, and that's why the numbers look at this. So I do really think that encouraging by actually believe in what you know so much when you sit in finance. You know all the things that actually
Definitely.
need to know in the business. So why don't you just use it? Come on, get your ass off and go out there, right? So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But how much is that in our training though? Seriously, like, we're taught all this finance of really good skills, and then we're not actually taught how to go influence and build relationships with people. We just assumed we know how to
one
do
of
that.
the actually main courses I think that's missing in university is communication between professionals and across the organization. I mean, standing in front of the commanders, telling them about how the numbers and the figures was going forward, and they're just like, okay, but can I go out shoot a cannon? You don't have you, but you have to go. You
Rough
have
area.
oh, great. No, but you have to you have to communicate figures and numbers to not economists, and that's actually pretty hard. But knowing how to, you get so much return, and that's one of the courses that's missing in the university, I think.
Yeah, you've actually just prompted something in my head, right? And it could be worth an article you want to write up on it. But like I'm a big believer in storytelling. I tell stories all the time, and the thing is like, it only just occurred to me now, is that when we go talking with people, we would basically turn those conversations into stories behind the numbers. And it's really, that's where the story comes from, and that's how you get the best way of getting something in our heads into other people's heads, is actually to tell a story. And if we're basically describing to a manager or an executive, saying, yeah, I spoke to so and so, or like this customer or whatever, and this is what was said, and this is what it means for the numbers, we're in effect telling a story, and they're seeing that play in their minds. It's a very effective way of getting the message across, is storytelling.
Yeah, about a story, I was when you're I'm sorry, do we have the time for it?
Yeah,
Maybe you can use it. It's okay, you can use this one.
Okay, we'll see. Yeah, go on.
So well, sitting with this finance and doing in the Navy, whenever our ship is out, you get a credit for invoice to NATO, and this bill was out when I was in the year of 2016. I got a bill added to 2014. I mean, how can I have put down the amount of money to pay this bill 2 years in front? There's no, you can't do that, right? So, I pick up the phone, and I wasn't yelling, but, my friend was pretty good and saying, what the fuck? You can't do this. This is gonna, blow out our project. And talking to a lot of guys, I went down to my manager and say, this is how it works. This is all the step it has to go through. And this is not responsibility for our project. This is unacceptable. So I'm going to work with this. And again, they just looked at me like, okay, she's crazy again. But time I was finished, I went from 2 years to 3 months. I mean, and that's just talking to all the people that actually have this invoice in their hand, talking to a guy down in, I think it was Berlin or something like that, saying, you know what? You knew this. This invoice was coming. Why in the hell wasn't I noticed? So we went from 2 years to 3 months. That was a very good example about, having the courage, by the way, because going into NATO takes a long hair, right? And talking to all these people and have the manager behind. So the storytelling about, it doesn't have to take this long. And as soon as they get the eyes of what how it all works and how long it's taken, all the steps, actually was kind of an eye opener for what was really happening. So we kind of cut it down for 2 years to 3 months. I'm quite proud of that, because it was a very good example of, hard work and delicate, and so.
But it's I mean, there's value in that. It's just freeing up time, having the conversations on behalf of other people, and it's great to have an object like an invoice in your hand saying, this is physical, right? Okay, how did this happen? What's the story? What's the story behind this?
And just remember that this is not $1,000. This is millions, right?
Yes.
So you have to forecast millions and maybe bills in the future, and that's just not acceptable. Well, not in my term, by the way. Well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just part of having, the people's backs that we're there to support as well. They appreciate the efforts we go to, particularly if we're going out and talking to people, because that takes time. It's an investment of time. And that's a scarce resource we all have.
Well, the funny part, and which also is a scary part, was my first boss. He didn't encourage me to do anything. He actually told me to just sit behind the screen and please don't talk, Sabine. And so whenever I had to do something, I was waiting for him to going on holiday so I can, do my thing.
Well, actually, that's like my first job. Yeah, I was in the mailroom, actually. I was told to stay in there and open invoices and scan them. That was my first job. It was only when I spotted that that there was no credit notes for invoices on pallets that I expected, because working in family business, you would expect credit notes for these wooden pallets that things would have been delivered on. Because you'd return them. It was like, and I asked questions about that. Finally got to the finance director of the area, and he set me up on a terminal. I talked to a few people as well, again with an invoice, and that's how I generated a conversation. And I saved them £1 million sterling.
Wow.
So and that was when I was 20. So it was like that. That's the story. That's the power of an invoice, and having a question about where the credit notes for this invoice.
And actually, the fun is that whenever you ask a question, everybody's shaking their head was, oh no, I have to answer something. I have to figure it out. I have
Yeah.
to talk to everybody else. But as soon as you get the result, everybody is like, oh, you're so good at this. I'm like, yeah, well.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Oh my God, look, so there's some good stories. You know what? I suppose in terms of our audience, if they wish to find out or learn more about you, where's the best place to connect with you at?
That will be LinkedIn. You are more than welcome to connect with me. I have all my, well, not all my papers in there, but you can see some of my results. I'm also doing articles and participating in debates and so on. So you're more than welcome to go in there and look for yourself and connect with me. So that would be perfect. I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Sabine, and all the good points on the show. The sort of definitely the courage, the self-belief as well. It's a very important trait. I think an asset of what we have as finance professionals is actually part of the training I definitely do with my team is that self-belief, self-vigilance. So look, you've been a great guest. Really appreciate you investing your time in us today. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding, and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.